Okay, so some reaction. You saw some of it earlier today from Ryan and I about Georgia being the three, Tennessee one, Ohio State two, Georgia three, and then the Dogs. Excuse me, Clemson at four. And if you read the story that I wrote on Tuesday night, then you're going to hear a lot of the same things. I think placing Tennessee at number one, I mean, that doesn't, I get that. That doesn't make there, I have no real issue with that at all. I think with the committee, on the other hand, uh, Chris Saliza, that is his name, the Bear, is a little bit more honest with a lot of folks. David Pollock can be too. And he nailed it when he said it looks like they're just making it up as they go along. Kirk Herbstreit, who is a great corporate, person, very good speaker for our sport. He said they're not making up as they go along. Kirk, they are definitely making it up as they go along because there's no explanation for the top seven being placed the way they are. Let's stick with me here because I'm going to go through this, and some of this stuff's not going to make sense because you watch football like I do. But if you're going to legitimately say that it is the best resume, then you have to put Tennessee at one, and frankly, you have to put Clemson at two. Well, everyone knows Clemson's not the number two team in the country. After that, you would either put Ohio State or Georgia or Michigan as the three. Georgia has the best win of all three of those teams. They would be the three. And then it would be a discussion as to who looked better against Penn State between Michigan and Ohio State. If you were being intellectually honest, that would be the way that you would determine things. In addition, you would have this kerfuffle about TCU and Alabama. In that case, you would have Texas Christian in front of Alabama because they have better wins. If it's about better wins, then it should be about better wins. If it's about the eye test, y'all have failed dramatically. The problem is that these collection of 13 folks, some of which do know what they're talking about, and many of which clearly do not, have jumbled them up in a way that they decided that the Vols should be one, which I'm not sure anyone's like screaming and yelling about that. That you can go by the eye test and say that Tennessee's won. I do not agree with that, but you can say that and it not be crazy. You can say it's the strength of schedule or the strength of record, whatever that is, and say that Tennessee's number one. I don't see how you can argue against that. I mean, to me, it looks like they are. Okay, but you can't do that and then intellectually be honest and say, oh, Ohio State looks better than Georgia, so we're going to put them there. Okay. And then after you do that, you say, I'm like, why don't they have Clemson at three? They have three wins that Georgia, they have two more wins that are ranked than Georgia does. And yet they've got Clemson at four and Georgia at three. Well, it can't be both unless you work for the college football playoff. This is why we need an expanded playoff. It's that simple. You're being traditionalist, if you want to call yourself that. We've only been through this thing for 8 years. If you think that we don't need an expanded playoff to avoid a committee, okay, you're wrong. You're wrong. And there's a couple of reasons why. Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee very well could be three of the top four teams in the country by the end of the year. The SEC will certainly not get three teams in the SEC into the college football playoff. That will not happen. So this whole thing is not about the best four teams. That is a lie that died in 2018 when we saw Oklahoma and Notre Dame, who clearly were not two of the best four teams, play in the college football playoff. That lie was exposed that year. But we're continuing this charade of it's just to become a circus of picks. It doesn't make it makes no sense. If you're going for quality, you can't use quality of win at one moment and then you use quantity of wins when you're talking about comparing Michigan and Clemson. If you're using quantity for Georgia and Ohio State, you can't. They both have the same amount of top 25 wins. One, the Oregon game, is significantly higher than the other, which is the Penn State win for Ohio State. It was on the road, which is a better win than a home win for the Dogs. Hey, listen, this weekend in Athens, you can get this shirt while supplies last at Red Zone, our friends, when you pick up Dog Struction. When you're in there, you can ask about our event with Kelee Ringo. Kelee this is going to be a fun event with Kelee. The book you get for free. You can bring one item to get signed. That's all included in the price that's below. You can also bring some other items, but that's limited. That's limited. You're gonna have to email me about that. You can also get pictures. You can also that is also going to be an extra charge. In addition, you can get something personalized, a personalized description for these things. Now there is a little bit of an extra charge, but you can't get those if you don't have a ticket. And I can assure you, we have fewer tickets now than we did. So get on it, and the countdown clock has begun to that event. It's going to be a fun event in 18 days on Sunday, November 20th. Kelee and company are going to be really challenged, not just in the passing game, but against the run with these number 1/2/3 Tennessee Vols. I don't think that certainly has never happened, 1, 2, and 3. But anyway, if you're the committee, you got to clean this up, because just for me, as someone who loves college football and has my entire life, I've covered the sport now for 20 plus years. I've seen the imperfections of the BCS. This is certainly better than the BCS, but we can't keep doing this. Like, you know, players are working hard. They're getting up. They're conditioning in the summer. They've turned their entire life. Do you think this? Do you think this guy's just chilling out? He's not, right? I mean, like, you think it just magically happened that Brock Bowers became this way? This guy was running up hills in California, or mountains, whatever they are, running up hills in California, sending the tapes to Georgia, sending the video to Georgia so he could get recruited by them. These guys are working. And what's happening now is we are changing the rules of the game as it goes. And it's not, first of all, and I know y'all are in academia and you understand what I'm talking about when I say this, it is not intellectually honest to change the rules. And you got to decide which is it. You can't. I mean, to me, if it's not the eyeball test, we're wasting our time. I mean, because you could make the argument with the eyeball test that Tennessee is the best team in the country, and you would not have to talk about anything else. Then you could talk about Ohio State being the second best, Georgia being the third best. Nobody in their right mind watching Clemson thinks they're the third best team. So what I'm saying is you're doing both, and it's not okay. It's ridiculous. You can't do that. I mean, so here's what Bear said. He says, it's funny how they kind of make up the rules as they go along and just flop things in. Yes, completely. Completely. And, David Pollock said this. He goes, I think we look at the eye test for some of these. Tennessee, one, is a strength of record, which I've never heard that term. I mean, I guess it's a college football playoff term. Whatever. Tennessee, one, is strength of record. Two, Ohio State is more an eye test, Pollock said. Alabama being ahead of Texas Christian, that's more an eye test. It's now a mixed bag of strength of record and eye test. Can't have mixed records. Somebody in the SEC is going to be one of the best 4 teams in the country with a loss. That's either going to be Bama, Georgia, or Tennessee. And that somebody should be in the playoff. The way this thing is set up right now, I am very disturbed that will not be the case. Okay? That will not be the case. It is very possible, maybe not probable, that you have 3 of the best teams in the country are from the SEC. It's going to be harder to make that argument because of the Ohio State Michigan factor. Okay? But I would say certainly 3 of the top 5 teams are from the SEC, and that's Bama, Georgia, and Tennessee, not necessarily in that order, with Ohio State and Alabama. People say, well, Alabama lost. Yeah, they did on the last play of the game to Tennessee on the road. Bama also has some tricky, situations with Texas A&M and Texas. Well, so did Clemson on the last play of the game with Syracuse and against Wake Forest on the road. Guess who else survived a tight game? Tennessee on the road at Pitt. But, the thing that's used against Georgia all the time is they struggled on the road against Missouri. So did Clemson. So did Tennessee. So did Alabama. Do you win or do you not win? Okay, then if you won, we move forward, right? If you lose, you get dinged. That's why Alabama's where they're at. But it doesn't make sense that they're where they're at if TCU is where they're at. We got a problem. And I told y'all earlier this week, if Michigan, Georgia, Tennessee, and Ohio State are not making up the top four, we got a red flag. We got a red flag. We got problems.